Millions of people are going to download a language learning app today.
Oh, absolutely. Thousands every minute, probably.
Yeah. And they're going to pay for a subscription, confidently open that very first lesson, and, try to speak their first sentence out loud.
Which is pretty much a guaranteed disaster.
Yeah, it fundamentally dooms their chances of ever actually becoming fluent.
Right.
I mean, it's the most common, universal trap in the whole world of self-improvement.
You have this, overwhelming desire to learn the language, right?
Exactly. You wake up with all this motivation, but then you sit down at your desk, you stare at a mountain of vocabulary flashcards, and the paralysis just sets in.
Because you have absolutely no idea what to do first.
Right. You don't have a roadmap.
Yeah.
So today, we are going to fix that. We're doing a deep dive into a deeply practical methodology drawn from a recent source.
Yeah, we're looking at a great excerpt from a YouTube video from the channel Enjoy English Talks.
Exactly. The video is called How to Speak English Fluently Step by Step Easy English for Beginners. And our mission for this deep dive is to map out the exact specific 5-step path for language learners who are starting from absolute zero today.
No more guessing. No more random, disconnected lessons.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core problem identified in the source is this lack of a roadmap. There's this really relatable conversation in the video where a speaker named Jake describes his cousin's dilemma.
Oh yeah, the cousin who wants to learn English but has zero concept of the order of operations.
You're right, and that is exactly why so many people quit by week 2.
It is the entire problem. The anxiety of taking on a massive new skill like a language, it rarely stems from a lack of cognitive capability.
It's just a lack of sequence.
Exactly. It stems almost entirely from a lack of sequence. People fall into the trap of doing the right things, but at entirely the wrong time.
So you could have the perfect tools, but if you apply them in the wrong order...
You are mathematically guaranteeing failure.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to stop looking at language learning as this purely academic exercise of, memorization.
Right.
We need to start looking at it as an architectural build. You need a floor, you need walls, and you need a roof, in that exact order.
Because if you're building a house, you can't just, suspend a roof in midair and cross your fingers that the walls are going to magically grow underneath to support it.
Right, but cognitively, that is exactly what people attempt to do when they jump straight into speaking.
Which brings us right to the first major psychological hurdle we need to dismantle. It's the day 1 fallacy.
The urge to speak immediately.
Yes. So many people fail because they demand immediate output from themselves. Day 1, hour 1, they're trying to form complex sentences.
Or they start by brute forcing their way through, giant randomized vocabulary lists.
Yeah, just trying to build the roof before they've even poured the concrete for the floor. But, looking at this from the perspective of an eager, highly motivated learner, why is this day 1 speaking approach so incredibly tempting if the data shows it fundamentally does not work?
Well, you have to factor in our cultural conditioning.
What do you mean?
We live in an environment that overwhelmingly praises immediate action, right? Highly visible output. We are conditioned from a very young age to believe that if we aren't producing something tangible...
Like if we aren't actively speaking or writing?
Exactly. If we aren't generating a measurable result, we think we aren't actually learning. It feels passive. It feels lazy.
So the eager learner jumps right into trying to speak because it feels like doing quote-unquote real work.
Right. But the source explicitly warns us about this. Attempting to speak too early is just a direct, high-speed pipeline to overwhelming frustration.
Because you're frantically searching your brain for tools that you just haven't put into the toolbox yet.
Let's unpack the actual physiological mechanics of that frustration, because it is really fascinating. When you try to speak on day 1, you are demanding that your brain produce complex output without any foundational input.
You're asking the factory to make a product without any raw materials.
Exactly. So what happens? Your brain frantically searches its database, it finds nothing, and it triggers a massive stress response.
Oh, wow. So cortisol floods the system.
Cortisol spikes. Your heart rate elevates. Think about trying to defuse a bomb while someone is screaming at you in a language you don't understand.
I would panic.
Right. Your brain immediately shifts out of the state required for memory encoding and goes into pure survival mode.
So when you force speaking too early, you literally condition your nervous system to associate the target language with, anxiety and stress.
You are biologically training yourself to hate the language.
Which means we have to radically redefine what step 1 actually looks like. If we accept that we can't build the roof first, we have to start by letting the floor. Right. And that leads directly to the concept of the empty cup. The source refers to this as the sponge phase. It's pure input.
Just absorbing.
Exactly. The methodology says you need to dedicate 10 to 15 minutes a day to purely listening. Put on a podcast, a foreign film, or, simple YouTube videos while you're doing chores. Folding laundry, riding the bus.
But here's the part that feels deeply counterintuitive for most high-achieving adults.
What's that?
You do not need to understand everything.
Yeah.
In fact, you don't need to understand anything at all.
Okay, wait. So if I'm walking the dog, right, I've got my earbuds in, and I'm listening to a stream of French or Japanese that I absolutely do not comprehend, what is my brain actually learning during this phase?
Well, this touches on the incredible and often ignored subconscious processing power of the human auditory system.
Okay.
Even if you don't understand a single definition of the words being spoken, your brain is actively mapping the sounds, is learning the rhythm and the music of the language.
The music of the language. That is such a crucial distinction because we tend to think of language as just text on a page.
Right, instead of an acoustic phenomenon. Linguistically, every single language on Earth has its own unique prosody.
Prosody.
Yeah, it has a specific melody, stress patterns, pitch variations. Long before a human baby ever understands what the word milk means, they intimately understand the underlying melody of their parents' language.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So during this initial sponge phase, your adult brain is doing the exact same neurological mapping.
Precisely. When you first hear a foreign language, it just sounds like a solid, impenetrable wall of noise.
Yeah, you can't even tell where one word ends and the next one begins.
Exactly. But by simply listening without the pressure of translation, you are familiarizing your auditory cortex with a completely new set of phonemes. You're teaching your brain the acoustic boundaries of the language.
And by removing the pressure to translate, you're bypassing that cortisol spike we talked about.
Yes. You are lowering what linguists call the affective filter.
The affective filter. What is that exactly?
It's an emotional barrier that completely blocks learning when a student is stressed, bored, or anxious. By telling yourself, I don't have to perform, I don't have to translate, I just have to let this sound wash over me, you drop that barrier to zero.
You're building the foundation without the toxic anxiety. But practically speaking, a learner can't stay in that passive sponge phase forever.
No, eventually the cup gets full.
Right. So how do you know when to move on? If there are no quizzes, no tests, what's the metric for progress here?
The source gives a really profoundly intuitive milestone for this. It happens the moment you're listening to that wall of noise, and suddenly it begins to fracture into distinct pieces.
You mean you start hearing individual words?
Yes, you hear a full rapid-fire sentence, and your brain suddenly flags single sound.
Mm.
You think, oh, I know that word.
Even if you don't know the rest of the sentence.
Exactly. The acoustic landscape has finally resolved into recognizable shapes. That little spark of recognition is the signal. Your brain has successfully mapped the basic phonetic structure.
The raw materials are finally sitting in the warehouse.
Which necessitates a massive pivot in the training strategy. Because once your brain is saturated with the music of the language, you have to transition to the mechanics of physically playing that music.
Right, which brings us to step 2, the copy machine.
Physical shadowing.
Exactly. This is where we shift from passive auditory absorption to active physical mechanics. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source uses this fascinating comparison. They say speaking is physical, like playing the piano.
It really is.
We so rarely think about our lips and our tongue actually needing physical practice. But with shadowing, you listen to a sentence, you pause, and you repeat it exactly. You're copying the speed, the rhythm, and the strong and soft words.
The phrase mouth training is arguably the most neglected aspect of language acquisition in traditional schooling. We just don't do it.
We just stare at grammar books.
Right. What shadowing effectively does is surgically separate cognitive learning, the heavy lifting of the brain, from physical execution, which is the muscular work of the face.
Break down why that separation is so vital. Like, what happens when we try to do both at the same time too early?
Okay, imagine you're trying to construct a sentence in a new language from scratch in real time. Your brain is in absolute overdrive.
It's fetching vocabulary, running grammar rules.
Checking syntax, managing verb conjugations. It's an enormous cognitive load. If, at the exact same millisecond, you are also trying to force your physical tongue and lips to make completely unfamiliar, highly precise muscular movements.
Like shaping new vowels.
Exactly. Hitting unfamiliar consonant clusters, the system just crashes. It's too much simultaneous processing. But shadowing completely eliminates the cognitive load of creation.
Because you don't have to invent the sentence. The native speaker on the recording already did all the heavy lifting.
Your only job is visible mimicry. You are building pure muscle memory in the articulatory system of your face.
It's like lip syncing. If you want to perform a song flawlessly, you don't start by trying to write the lyrics and compose the melody and hit the high notes all at once.
No, you put on the track and you just move your mouth to the exact rhythm of the original artist.
The source gives a great example sentence for this. I would like a cup of coffee, please.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right, because if a beginner just reads that off a piece of paper, they're going to pronounce every single word with equal weight.
I would like a cup.
Exactly, robotic timing with heavy native language interference. But when you use shadowing, you realize that speaking is about the physical choreography of the phrase.
Especially because English is a stress-timed language. The rhythm of the sentence is dictated entirely by the stressed syllables.
And the unstressed words get compressed.
Heavily compressed, rushed, or practically swallowed. So when you shadow a native speaker saying that coffee sentence, you aren't just learning to pronounce the isolated word coffee.
You're training your tongue to glide over I would like a, so you can land heavily on cup.
And then glide over of to land heavily on coffee. You're teaching your muscles the precise choreography of fluency, bypassing the need for a live partner or teacher at this stage.
It's so practical. You don't have to coordinate schedules, you don't have to pay for a tutor, and you don't have to feel embarrassed. You just need a podcast, a pause button, and your own vocal cords.
You're tuning the instrument in the privacy of your own home.
But, shadowing is essentially just mimicking someone else's script.
It has a hard ceiling, yeah.
Right. To truly speak, you eventually have to generate your own script, which requires a safe, zero-pressure environment to bridge that gap. And that leads us to step 3, the narrator.
Build the brain-mouth connection.
Exactly. Step 3 is talking to yourself. The methodology suggests narrating your daily life out loud, like I'm making breakfast or I'm pouring coffee.
Or doing a nightly review.
Yeah, sitting on your bed at night and summarizing your day in 3 or 4 simple sentences. Today I went to work, it was raining. The source uses this analogy of being a sports announcer or a movie narrator for your own life.
It's a fantastic analogy.
But I have to push back a little here. Doesn't this make the learner feel entirely crazy? I mean, why subject yourself to the inherent awkwardness of talking to an empty room?
Oh, it will absolutely feel foolish for the first few days. That awkwardness is completely natural.
So why do it?
Because of the psychological genius of this step based on the source text. It deliberately manufactures a zero-pressure environment for spontaneous generation.
Zero pressure because nobody is there to hear you mess up.
Exactly. Let's look at the visceral fear of speaking a foreign language. That fear is almost entirely social, not academic.
We're afraid of looking stupid.
Right. Adults have a very high baseline of competence in their daily lives. We're used to being articulate and capable. When we try to speak a new language, we are suddenly reduced to the communication level of a toddler.
And we are terrified of the social embarrassment that comes with butchering a grammar rule.
But step 3 surgically removes the social anxiety from the equation. There's no judgment. There's no embarrassment. The source highlights this with a really funny line. They say, your cat does not judge your grammar, only your cooking.
Which is very true, but that's the crucial link, isn't it? Step 1 filled the brain, step 2 trained the mouth, and step 3 finally forces the brain and mouth to work together to generate an original thought.
Completely free of social anxiety. You are retrieving the vocabulary, formatting the grammar, and physically speaking it aloud. You're test driving the car in an empty parking lot before you take it out onto the highway.
I love that. You're proving to your brain that this language can be used to express your actual lived reality, but eventually the learner must leave the safety of their kitchen and their non-judgmental cat and face the real world.
Right, you can't stay in the parking lot forever.
Which leads to the most intimidating phase of the entire map. Step 4, the brave leap.
Talking to others.
Yes. Step 4 involves real people. But the source is clear. You start small. You don't just walk up to a group of native speakers. You start with language partners via apps or websites where 2 learners help each other.
And then you graduate to small, real-life interactions, coffee shops, stores.
But the physical symptoms of fear mentioned in the source, they are very real. Hands shaking, the sheer terror of making mistakes. So how does a learner reframe this fear of making mistakes so it doesn't paralyze them?
What's fascinating here is the profound reframing the source provides. They explicitly state, Every mistake makes your English stronger.
Every mistake makes it stronger. That's a huge mindset shift.
It's essential. If you view a linguistic mistake as a character flaw or a public display of stupidity, your brain will mandate that you avoid speaking at all costs.
To protect your social standing.
Exactly. But if you view a mistake as a completely neutral, necessary piece of feedback, a momentary glitch in the software that you are actively patching, then you actually start to seek out those interactions.
And that's why the strategy of starting small with other learners is so brilliant.
Because the terror is mutual.
Right. If I'm trying to speak terrible Spanish to someone who's trying to speak terrible English back to me, the power dynamic is perfectly balanced.
When a novice tries to speak to a native speaker, there is an inherent, massive asymmetry. The native speaker is the master, and the learner is the stumbling novice. That gap breeds intimidation.
But with a language partner, you're both stumbling.
Yes, that shared vulnerability completely mitigates the terror. You realize you aren't judging them for their mispronunciations, which makes it easier for your brain to accept that they aren't judging you for yours.
It's an exercise in profound empathy. And the source note's a really comforting truth about humanity here, too. When you do finally step up to those real-life interactions, like at a coffee shop, most people are incredibly kind.
They really are.
They will slow down, they will smile, they respect the bravery of someone learning a new language.
Because on an intuitive level, everyone recognizes how difficult it is. Growth in this phase happens slowly, and it's almost invisible day to day. You don't walk away from a 3-minute interaction at a bakery feeling fluent.
You walk away overanalyzing the verb you messed up.
Right, but neurologically, every single conversation is practice. Every time you open your mouth under the pressure of real-time social communication, you are cementing those pathways. You're proving to your primitive brain that this language is necessary for social connection.
And once your brain believes that, it prioritizes the retention of the language. But while step 4 achieves basic communication, there is still one final, almost invisible hurdle that separates a speaker from true fluency.
The roof of the house.
Yes. Step 5, the holy grail, thinking in English, or whatever your target language is.
Skipping the internal translation process.
Exactly. Anyone who has studied a language knows the exhausting 3-step translation lag.
Oh, it's brutal.
You think of the concept in your native language, your brain halts to desperately search for the translation, and then you finally push that translated thought out of your mouth. Doing that for a 30-minute conversation is calorically exhausting.
It inherently slows your reaction time and makes everything clunky.
So the tactical advice from the source to combat this is brilliant. You start aggressively labeling the physical world around you directly in the target language.
You bypass the native language middleman.
Right. You look at the object on your desk. Instead of thinking the word for pen in your native language and then translating it, you force yourself to look at it and just think pen. You look at your notebook. Notebook.
You're hot-wiring your brain to connect raw visual stimuli directly to the new vocabulary.
And it's not just static objects. The source talks about manufacturing spontaneous reactions.
Right, like if you drop your key.
Yes. If you drop your keys, your instinct is to swear in your native language. You have to train yourself to override that reflex. You drop the keys, and you force yourself to say, oh no, or damn it in the target language.
Or you see a dog and instantly think, so cute.
Exactly. You are systematically hijacking your own spontaneous reflexes.
This raises an important question about the nature of the subconscious. What you are actively doing with these labeling exercises is attempting to consciously drag the target language down out of your working memory and bury it deep into the automatic subconscious centers of the brain.
Turning it from a heavy cognitive action into a weightless reflex.
Yes, and this leads directly to the ultimate milestone mentioned in the source. Dreaming in the target language.
Dreaming in a foreign language. It sounds almost mythical when you start, but the source points out that you cannot choose when this happens.
No, you can't just schedule it in your calendar.
Right, you can't check off a box that says, have a complex dream in Spanish tonight.
It is entirely beyond your conscious control. And that is exactly why is the ultimate metric of success. Dreaming in a foreign language is an involuntary surrender by the brain.
Wow, an involuntary surrender.
It proves that the language is no longer a foreign object. It's a living part of the learner's mind. Your brain is actively using those words to process your deepest emotions and memories, completely independent of your conscious will.
It's the ultimate proof that the architectural build is complete. The electricity is running through the walls entirely on its own.
And it's vital to emphasize that this isn't a hack. It is the natural, inevitable result of compounding the previous 4 steps over weeks, months, and years.
So let's briefly recap this beautiful logical flow for the listener, because it really is a map that takes you from complete paralysis to involuntary fluency.
Step 1. Fill the brain.
Right, the sponge phase. Absorb the music and lower the affective filter.
Step 2. Copy the sounds.
Mouth training, using shadowing to bypass cognitive overload.
Step 3. Narrate your life.
The safe connection, building the brain-mouth bridge where only your cat can judge you.
Step 4. Talk to others.
The brave leap, starting small with language partners and reframing mistakes as software patches.
And finally, Step 5. Think and dream.
The holy grail, hot-wiring your reflexes until the language bleeds into your subconscious. It's a journey of one small step every day.
And, wherever you are on this path, you are already moving forward. The source is so encouraging about this. You should be proud of whatever step you're currently standing on, because each single phase is completely essential.
You aren't just standing in a field staring at a pile of lumber anymore. You have the blueprint. Which leaves me with a final, lingering thought for you to ponder on your own after this deep dive is over.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if the ultimate sign of language fluency is that it fundamentally alters the landscape of your involuntary subconscious dreams, how might applying this exact same 5-step architecture, absorbing, copying, narrating, engaging, and internalizing, completely rewire the way you learn and master literally any complex skill in your life?